Social policy is a pretty broad field. We study everything from education policy to issues of criminal justice, welfare. Basically, we're interested in how policy gets made. That could be in a system like the United States. It could be anything from federal policy making to policy making at the state or local government level. And we're interested in when policy gets made, does it get implemented in the ways intended or otherwise? For example, if we're interested in education policy at the state or school district level, we look in schools and classrooms and see what happens. Have people change their practice, their behavior in response to this piece of legislation? And we bring a variety of methodologies, everything from doing randomized experiments, controlled experiments, where we create field experiments. But many of us also draw upon more qualitative approaches where we're not so much trying to test hypotheses, but we're trying to generate hypotheses, build theory about the policy-making process. For example, we might be interested in who has a voice, who gets to participate, who influences. First of all, you have to have a question. It doesn't matter whether you're an undergraduate, graduate student, or a professor. If you're not interested in the topic, it's not a good idea to spend time on it, because research is tough, it's hard work, and interest is half the battle. Then I would go look at the list of faculty, go look at who's working on what particular issues. This is typically how people come to me. They say, oh, I see you do work in the implementation of state standards. And talk to that person about your idea, but come with the idea a little formulated. Don't just come and say, oh, I want to do research on high-stakes accountability, or I want to do research on policy on school lunches. Have read up a little bit, have read some of the person's work, and have an idea and play that off on the person. I think it's always good to get a sense of the lay of the land. What's the state of the literature? What do we know about this topic up to now? From studying social policy issues, you learn a lot that carries across a whole variety of areas. If you go into law or other public policy fields eventually, I think that experience counts for a lot. You learn a lot from having to negotiate how sociology, psychology, economics, and getting these to work together to create frameworks to guide the research. So I think the most difficult thing for any of us, again, it's not just undergrads, is developing a good research question. And the way to do that, I think, is to begin to read, but also to talk to faculty. Also having a sense, I think, of what data is out there that I can use, that I can access relatively easily, that minimizes the cost to me. There are lots of secondary data sets. Some of them are public. Others students can access through faculty. Faculty tend to be pretty generous about, well, I have this data set, you could run an analysis on it. And then, of course, a lot of public data, like public schools, such as the Chicago public schools, a lot of that data is public. It has to be public. It's required by law. Also thinking, what data might I have access to that I don't actually have to collect myself? I find, for me personally, the closer I am to what I'm studying, if I'm studying how policy gets made in a school district or a state, being up close, observing the process, doing interviews with people involved is a lot of fun. But even if you're just using survey data where you have no contact with the subjects, I think that sense of discovery, all of a sudden you see there's a connection between 2 or 3 variables. You say, oh my God, what's going on here? This is interesting. Look at this pattern. And then you try and say, oh no, it can't be right. Let me see if I can undermine this argument I'm trying to make. That's a lot of fun.